I'm in third gear, going about 8,000 RPMs, and let me kick on. Hello and welcome to my channel. Welcome back. Welcome to TV Twisters Moto. So I'm here again doing another video on the CBR650R. Just a reminder, this is the 2019 model of the bike. So this is just going to be a brief review of my experience with the bike so far, how I feel about it. I say review, but please don't take that too seriously. I've only had the bike for 2 weeks. I've done about 300 miles on it, so this isn't going to be an in-depth review. If you want an in-depth review, you should go find one on YouTube or read one on the internet or something. This is just going to be my initial impressions, so just my initial opinions and my first 2 weeks experience on the bike. I've picked up a few things that I like, maybe a few things that I don't like, and I just want to share them with you. I do have two disclaimers to make before I start this video though. The first disclaimer is that this is the 2019 edition of the bike. So if you're watching this review to get an idea of how you might feel about the 2022, you should keep in mind that there are a few changes. They're not major differences, so you can still use this review as a reference, but just keep that in mind. And the second disclaimer I want to make is that I do have a few modifications on this bike that may sway my opinion about how I feel about it compared to the stock bikes. So the mods that I have that would make a difference to my opinion on the bike are these ASV levers. Obviously they're going to feel different to the stock ones. I've got a bigger windscreen. It's the OEM one, it's the OEM Honda one, but it is bigger, so that's also going to affect how I feel about the bike. And the most important one is this. I've got the full titanium Akrapovic exhaust system, so that definitely is going to influence how I feel about the bike compared to if it was stock. But all the other mods, which isn't much, they won't really affect how I feel about the bike. It's pretty much stock other than that. So yeah, now that I've said all the nonsense I need to say, let's jump on the bike and let's talk about it some more. Okay, let's start with the mirrors. I know, funny right? They're folded up. I don't use them. Now obviously I know mirrors are important on a motorcycle, and I probably am going to start using my mirrors at some point. I used to be really addicted to the mirrors. It's because I was so reliant on them. So obviously I knew this was an issue. So to train myself to not use the mirrors so much and to rely on lifesaver checks a little bit more, I started folding my mirrors in so that I would be forced to turn my head and do lifesavers. And let's just say I got too used to doing lifesavers and swiveling my head, so now I don't really use my mirrors as much. But I do feel, even though I should be using both the mirrors and my lifesaver checks, I do feel like I ride smarter and I ride more cautious when I use my lifesavers instead of the mirrors. So that's why the mirrors are folded for now. I am planning to either get bar end mirrors or just change these ones because I don't like the way these ones look. So well, there you go, there's my review of the mirrors. I don't like them. I mean, they work fine, I can see behind me with them, they work as they should do. I just don't like the look of them, so those are going to be switched out for sure. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about the dash. The dash is good. I really actually like this dash. In my opinion, honestly, the dash is fine. Even in direct sunlight, it's been fine. I can see it nice and clearly, so I have no problems with the dash personally. I don't mind going slow right now whilst I'm talking about the dash. to give a better view of it. All the information that you need is displayed clearly. I like on this side there's a little shift indicator light. That's nice and easy to see. Sometimes you get carried away revving, and that's a nice reminder. I like that the gear position indicator is really big and easy to see, and the speed obviously is big and easy to see. And I like the clock. Clock is good. I mean, everything's good. I mean, I don't really play around with the information. The information that it's displaying now is perfect, and apparently I'm only getting 38.8 miles per gallon, so that's not very good. But yeah, can't complain. Dash is great. Just had to have a bit of fun for a second. I work my way this way through the bike just to make it easier so I don't miss anything. So I guess next we're on to the handlebars, I guess. And I guess if we're going to move on to the handlebars, we should just talk about positioning in general. This is a funny one because it really depends on who you ask. But I mean, I guess since you guys are watching the video, you're asking me. And I'm a bit of a stickler when it comes to comfort. I'm very picky, and believe it or not, despite a lot of people calling this a comfortable bike, I think this bike is a little bit too uncomfortable for me. I think it's a bit too committed. Now, you have to understand my background for that to make a bit more sense. I used to have a CBR650R. Now, that is considered a very comfortable bike, but believe it or not, for me the 500R was still a bit too sporty and race oriented for my liking, so my back and my wrist used to hurt quite a considerable bit whilst riding that bike. And just so you know, in case you don't already know, this bike is even less comfortable and it's even more committed and sporty than the CBR500R. So I knew that going into it, but I thought maybe it's not that much worse that I would have any issues. And it turns out that that wasn't the case. I do struggle a bit with this bike. It is a bit too lean over for me. My knees are a bit up too high for me. It's not too bad. I mean, I could commute on the bike. I mean, I do intend to commute on this bike, so I can do it, and I have ridden for long periods at a time on this bike. But you know, after about 45 minutes I do start to feel it. But since we're already talking about positioning and comfort, might as well talk about the seat. I really like this seat. This seat is great, very comfortable. I haven't had an issue. I have never felt any sort of fatigue on my backside in any kind of way. It's been great. So yeah, big thumbs up for the seat. That thing is comfortable. It makes up for how uncomfortable the positioning makes me. The seat kind of makes it worth it. What else should I cover? Actually, I skipped this. I skipped the windscreen. Now obviously I got the bike with this windscreen on it, so I can't compare it to the standard one. However, from what I've experienced, this one I barely feel any wind when I'm going fast. It does a good job of getting all of the air above my head. Let's talk about the throttle response. It doesn't feel bad or anything like that. The only thing I would say is, now again, I don't have a lot of experience with motorcycles. I've only ridden a handful of them, but of all the bikes I've ridden, this throttle seems a bit laggy. Now, not laggy in how you may expect. I don't mean that there's a lot of slack in the throttle or there's a lot of play. so when you twist it, it doesn't kick in straight away. I don't mean that, it does kick in fine as you like. I don't know if that gives you an idea. It does kick in well, but it isn't as sharp as I'd think it would be. The way the throttle just doesn't feel like it delivers what you're giving it. It takes a while to, like, if I rev really hard, I only feel like I started revving hard a little bit after I've revved. It isn't kind of straight away as I'm used to. Again, maybe it's just my lack of experience with different types of motorcycles, but in my opinion, the throttle compared to the other bikes I've ridden does feel a little bit laggy. Is that a problem? No, if anything, it makes it more approachable. It makes it less intimidating, and it makes it a lot easier. It's the kind of bike you can pick up and ride first time being on the bike. You don't have to learn anything particular about this bike. It's a easy going, jump on it and ride. It's ready for anyone to ride it, even if it's your first time being on the bike. Let's talk about handling. The handling is okay, the bike handles well. If I'm being honest, my only complaint with handling is that the bike is a bit more whalish than I'd expect it to be. It feels like I'm on a whale, and it's not that big of a bike. It's not even that much heavier than my CBR650R, which felt super easy to move around. That thing flicked around really easily. This, I definitely have to put a lot more effort to get it where I want it to go. But I mean, when it does go where you want it to go, it does it well. So it takes a bit of effort to get it going to where you want it to go, if I'm being honest, at first. But yeah, it does it a bit slower than you'd like, but it does it well. You feel stable. So handling, initially not great, but once you're committed to what you're doing, it feels solid. Let's talk about the tires. Now again, that's something I should have mentioned. I'm not running the tires that come with this bike. I believe I'm running Bridgestone Battle Axes Hypersport 2, I think is the full term. I probably butchered that, and feel free to laugh at me because I know nothing about bikes or their tires. But yeah, I think that's what's on the bike. So I guess it's not really fair for me to comment on the tires, but I mean, it's my bike and it's the review, so I'm gonna mention it. The tires are good, so if you're in the market for those tires, go ahead. Now I used to, on my CBR650R, I used to have Pirelli Angel GTs, and those were amazing. I have never ridden on another bike or on any other tires that were that good. Like those tires, the Pirelli Angel GTs, you feel like you can do anything. You can lean as far as you want. You always have traction. Like, I've never lost traction with those tires, and I used to ride like a maniac. Like, honestly, best tires. And then I went on to the Michelin Road 5s after the Pirellis. The Michelin Road 5s, they were good, but they weren't as good as the Pirellis in my opinion. Actually, it took me a while to get used to them. And just for reference, the Bridgestone Battle Axes, they sit somewhere in between. Not as good as the Pirellis, but I like them more than I did the Michelin Road 5. So yeah, decent tires. I feel comfortable on the bike. I haven't really pushed it to its paces and really gotten down low or, you know, had any problem with traction. I mean, to be honest, I haven't even turned the traction control off since I got the bike, so I haven't done anything too crazy. But to be honest, I can't complain about that. In terms of the controls, I mean, what do you want to know about them? They work fine. They're all you need on this bike. I haven't had any issues. In terms of the overall quality of the bike, if I'm gonna be honest, like the little plastic pieces, you know, like the mud guards on the front wheel and the back wheel, just a few little bits of plastic here and there, they feel really cheap. I'm gonna be honest, they do feel really cheap. They feel more flimsy than my CBR650R did, which is weird. So the build quality of the bike, obviously the engine, it's a Honda engine, it's going to be pristine, and yeah, the build quality is going to be pristine, and you know, it's going to run well, it's going to be reliable, but the actual plasticky bits and all the fairings and stuff, even some of the nuts and bolts, I don't know, they just feel a bit light and cheap. But again, it's not an expensive bike, so I can't really knock it for that. But yeah, that did kind of confuse me at first. This bike somehow feels cheaper than my 500R, which is a cheaper, smaller bike than this. But moving on, let's talk about the more interesting stuff, or the things that I find more interesting. Let's talk about the power of the bike and the power delivery, and we'll talk about my favorite thing, which is the exhaust, which obviously the last one is more pertained to my motorcycle specifically, but I still want to talk about it because I mean, it does play a big part in how I feel about this bike in the first 2 weeks since I've had it. Don't worry, you won't have to suffer in this traffic for much longer, for with the power of editing, I can get us somewhere much more interesting. That's just a test. If you can hear that echo on the video, then it means I finally got a half decent mic setup. If you didn't hear it, I still have a lot of work to do in terms of my mic setup. Okay, power. Let's talk about power. I'm in the UK, if you couldn't tell, and in the UK there's different categories to your license. So you've got the A1, the A2, and then the full A license. So I have the full A license, which means I can ride whatever bike I want pretty much. Doesn't matter how powerful it is, there's no restrictions. But before I got the A, I used to have the A2, which means I did have a restriction. And that's why I used to have a CBR650R, because that bike was pretty much the maximum power you were allowed to have on an A2 license. So even though I did enjoy the 500R, I always wanted more power, and I told myself that when I finally was unrestricted, that I would get a really fast bike that would make me feel like I actually went up in power class, and that I really felt like all of my years going from my CBT to my A2, and then finally after many years to get my A license, it would be worth it. It would feel like I finally accomplished something. You know, I finally got that big, beefy, powerful inline 4 machine, and that was the plan. And then I got this, and now, as I said in my last video, I'll get to why I couldn't make up my mind where I was going then. I'll get to why I chose this bike, despite everything I just said, in another video. Ultimately, I did choose this bike, and one of the main things I was curious about when I finally did get it is if it would satisfy me, if I would be happy with the purchase. Does it have enough power to justify, you know, me waiting so many years to finally get a fast motorcycle? How do I answer this? The answer is both yes and no. But it's more of a yes than a no. I'm not gonna complain. To be honest, I wish this bike did have a little bit more power, and sometimes I do think maybe I could have bought a bike that's a bit faster. But at the same time, this bike is all the speed I need, and I honestly wouldn't need it to go any faster. Now let me explain what I mean by that. When I first got the bike, because I never test rode this bike before I got it, I just bought the bike. So the first time me riding it was when I had already owned it. Now the first time I rode this bike, I was shocked that it felt just like my 500, because I was riding it like my CBR500, which, if you know about the CBR500 and you know about this bike, you know they're two very different bikes in how they ride. That's how I'm used to riding. So I was kind of riding this in the same way, and I realized that this bike just kind of felt like a 500. I was like, this doesn't feel any different to my 500, and I was kind of disappointed at first, until I realized that I have to shift a lot later with this bike because it can rev a lot higher. And when you do rev for longer and you hold onto that accelerator, or you keep that throttle pinned for long enough, eventually that power does come, and it comes hard. That that was a bit weird to say, but you know what I mean. Yeah, the power comes in. It comes in a lot when you hold onto the throttle long enough. If you're in the right gear, if you're in low enough of a gear and you really smack on the throttle, you get a lot of power. You get a lot of power. Now, I'm saying a lot of power like I'm talking about a 1000cc bike. No, I'm not. I know this bike is a slow bike in the grand scheme of things, of course, but I mean, it's fast enough for me to be happy with my purchase. It's fast enough to thrill me, for sure. This bike can thrill you. It can go fast enough that it will thrill you, and it, sadly to say, it can go fast enough that it can kill you. I mean, any motorcycle can, but yeah, this bike definitely, it's got some punch behind it. So it isn't the balls to the walls power that I was hoping it would be when I first got the bike, or before I got the bike, but it definitely does have enough power to satisfy me. So if you're looking into getting the bike, and maybe what I just said kind of made you turn away from the bike, maybe it made you think you don't want to buy it because it doesn't have enough power, please don't take that away from what I said. I'm just being realistic, but I'm also being a bit harsh on the bike. Trust me, the bike is fast. Trust me, the bike is fun. It's a good bike. I'm not knocking the bike, saying it's a baby slow bike, but obviously there are much faster options that I could have got. Now, in terms of the power delivery, I will say that's something that kind of took me by surprise. Yeah, the bike's got a lot of low down grunt, and it has a lot of power up top. But what surprised me is the mid-range. This bike has no mid-range power. Literally, if you're, going, from 0 to 100 or whatever, by that I mean miles per hour. If you're going from 0 to 100, you start off really quick. You get to 60 instantly. And then when you get to about 70, 80 miles an hour, it's like there's just no power. The bike just drops in power, and you think, oh, is that it? That was disappointing. I thought the bike would do much better than that. Then you get to about 90, 100, and then the bike just picks up again, and it's like this weird power comes out of nowhere, and you just start going really fast, and then it kind of excites you again. Now, I'm sure there's an ECU flash or a tune or something you could do to the bike to get that extra power in, which would fix that, but as I said, it doesn't really need fixing. It's not a problem that needs to be fixed. It's just, it's definitely noticeable though, in my opinion. Yeah, other than that, I think that's it. So now I can talk about my favorite thing, which is the exhaust. Not much to say. It's loud. It's very loud and it's very fun, and it sounds beautiful. I love the inline 4 sound. I've always wanted the inline 4 sound, so now that I finally have the inline 4 sound, I'm very happy. Also, I don't know why I'm staying in traffic. I don't have to. I'm a bike and I can filter. I should probably do that. Living on the edge, folks. Living on the edge. Literally living on the edge. I might be dying on the edge soon, but we'll see. But yeah, there's not really much to say, to be honest, about the exhaust. It's loud, it's fun, and I would recommend anyone get one if you can, because it makes the bike so much more fun to ride. It's my favorite thing about the bike, and let's see if we can make some noise under this little bridge. Hooligan. I am nothing but a hooligan. And I guess I'll just finish up the video just by talking about how I feel about the bike in general. I'm happy with it. It's a good purchase. The power's great. Having a lot of fun on it. I can go fast. I sound good. I feel good. Everything is great. I know the few negative things I said may have sounded very harsh, like I don't like the bike or something, but trust me, that is not the case. that is not the case at all. There it is. Sorry that it's so dirty. I didn't really have time to clean it. I did have time, I was just too lazy, if I'm being honest. Oh yeah, I didn't talk about the look of the bike. Look at it, it looks great. I love the look of it. I wanted to get the red one, but I'm kind of happy I got the black one, because I feel like all of this bit stands out a lot on the red and it looks a bit weird. But with the black, it all kind of matches together, so I'm kind of happy I got the black. And obviously mine has the seat cowl, so it looks a little bit more sporty at the back. Yeah, I like it, man. I'm happy with it so far, and I got no complaints. I mean, I didn't park in the best place, but I like the front headlights. Look sick, looks mean and aggressive, and yeah, good bike. I mean, I think this is like a children's park or something like that, so I don't want to rev the bike too loud, but just give you a little taste of the exhaust. Thanks for watching. Please leave a comment, leave any suggestions, ask any questions, and yeah, like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.